So we practice teaching our students how to trade those emotions. Yeah, we've all felt those. They're no fun. Yeah, I know it's going to be hard to feel a different emotion because you haven't been practicing feeling this. I know that you've been bruised enough times in your heart that you're not so sure you want to open it up right away. So these are things that every student comes up against. But if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you start placing your attention in your heart, you're giving it your attention, you're giving it energy, you're giving it life force. And learning how to breathe and control the heart by allowing it to feel safe enough to come out. It's not something that really is a technique. It's just something when you start breathing deeply, you convert out of that sympathetic nervous system into more of the parasympathetic systems. And when you start cultivating an elevated emotion and you start allowing yourself to breathe and feel, you can train the body that it's safe enough to create now. And I was just talking to a group of scientists, as I said, and some new scientists were asking us questions. And I said, no, this is magic. When that heart moves into that level of coherence, it sends a very profound electromagnetic signature to the brain, as well as through circulatory system, etc. And the heart begins to move the brain into those alpha patterns. And now we tend to be that more creative person, as I said earlier. So when we're in that place, we're more trusting, we're more present, we're more compassionate, we're more giving. We tend to consider the whole. We're more loving, we're more joyful, we're more inspired, we're more creative. This is a different consciousness. This is a different way of living. And then, of course, then you got to take it out for a spin with your eyes open and stay connected to the energy and the emotion of your future while there's an assault going on in the environment, from everything from personal dynamics and relationships to the news to whatever. It's all there. And people forget. And again, the energy drops. And when they're in a different state, everything changes, including the way they speak, including the way they perceive the world. They're looking at it through a different lens. So we practice this, doing it at first with our eyes closed, because it's essential to eliminate the environment. It's essential to sit your body down and not be experiencing and feeling and tasting and smelling and hearing. Sit it down and make it be in one place and get into the present moment. And when the heart starts to regulate in order, it begins to tell the brain it's in a safe environment again. And we are creators, and now we're ready to create. So the heart has to be activated, because if you're going to believe in that future that you're imagining with all your heart, it better be signaled, opened, and activated. Otherwise, if you're living in a different emotion, then you're trying to see that future through a different lens, through the lens of the past. And the body is not in that future, it's still in the past. So you may have the very clear intention, but if you can't feel the emotion of your future, mind and body are in opposition. So getting the body into an elevated state and feeling those elevated emotions, including gratitude, including appreciation and kindness and care, and all those ones that come from this beautiful center, causes us to truly accept the thoughts that we're thinking, to believe in those thoughts, to surrender to those thoughts without analyzing them. And that's what begins to program the autonomic nervous system to begin to get the instructions of the thought and begin to automatically change the body's physiology and chemistry. And when that happens, oh my goodness, we've seen changes in everything, not only in the way a person speaks, not only in their pain levels, health conditions, but truly they're a different person. And doing that properly moves the body out of the past. It moves the body into the present moment. And keep practicing that. I say to the advanced students all the time, in a week-long event, how many of you feel better than you did yesterday? The entire room raises their hand, and I ask them the same question. Then why would you stop doing this? Why? Why would you stop? You just may start feeling better every day. That may become a new habit. So we are in the early stages of being able to demystify this process so that people have within their reach the tools to be able to become less reliant on something outside of them to change their internal state. And one of the two doors that we use to get there is the combination of brain and heart coherence. Brain coherence meaning a very clear signal, clear intention, a directive, and heart coherence and elevated emotion. That's the combination that changes our state of being. And if you keep practicing the formula, you start to see profound biological changes take place first in people's bodies, then ultimately you start seeing those events start taking place in their life, because that heart is producing an external field. It's producing a magnetic field that tends to draw the synchronicities to us. We don't go anywhere to get them. Somehow they're coming to us. I think that's a better way to live life than constantly rushing and forcing and trying to control and predict outcomes. It takes practice. We have to lay down the very thing we used our entire life to get what we want, matter to matter, for something greater to occur. And I work on it every day. It's a constant thing. My definition of surrender has changed dramatically. And again, the simple answer is when we trust, fully trust in an outcome where we're no longer trying to control, to try and do it ourselves. If you've ever had a great parent, like I was fortunate enough to have a great mother and a great father. And my mother was just always very loving and very unconditional, but very stern with me, and was the voice of reason for me. She had a lot of common sense. And so when I asked my mother for help on something, when I asked my mother to do something for me as a child, I just knew that she would help me. And so I didn't have difficulty asking for help. Of course, there were certain conditions that were reasonable, but I trusted her, and I would surrender that she would help me, and I wouldn't try to get in the way when she did it. I just trusted that she knew what she was doing. So many people want to surrender, but they have terms and conditions with the greater mind. They're saying, well, I want to surrender this emotion, but please do it this way, or please do it that way, or I'd like this to happen, or like that to happen. That's not surrender, that's conditions, right? So from a scientific perspective, if a person can get beyond their attention on their body, on the people in their life, on the objects or things that are in their world, the place they live, the place they sleep, the place they're sitting, and not think about the predictable future, the familiar past, if they can disinvest all of their attention, all of their energy out of this three-dimensional reality, out of the known, and put it on energy and frequency, an invisible field of energy that is empty space where there's nothing that we can identify with materially. If we do this properly, the only thing we are is a consciousness. We're conscious of nothing. That tends to be the door to the quantum field. We've seen all kinds of wonderful effects take place in the brain and the heart. So if they truly get to that door where they can get beyond themselves and all those associations that they've identified with, then it makes sense then, if they're in that field, and the quantum field is a unifying field that is connection, connecting everything physical or material. In fact, there would be no three-dimensional reality without this energetic field. And as we get closer and closer to source, to singularity, to oneness, to pure love, to the all in all, whatever you want to call that, the more the energy frequency increases and the more order and coherence that takes place. So much order, so much coherence, you feel more oneness, you feel more whole. And it's translated biologically. So as we swim upstream and we put our attention on this field and not on anything physical or material, and we can't experience it with our senses, but only with our awareness. If I ask you to tune into a greater frequency of oneness and you're truly consciousness and aware of nothing but where all possibilities exist, then the frequency of oneness exists there. If you put your attention on it, if you could find it, if you could feel it, if you could pay attention to it, if you could stay connected to it, if you could experience it, if you could notice it, if you could stay present with it, if you could become more of it and less of you, it makes sense that your consciousness would literally merge with that consciousness or that frequency, and you would be moving closer and closer to the source where everything physical or material is coming from. If we got to that place where there's a greater consciousness, a greater level of order, a greater level of frequency or energy, and we surrender a problem or a condition to it, it's no different than surrendering that condition to a great parent. We are asking for it to organize it in a way that's right for us, and its essence truly is love. So it's loving us all the time. It's giving us life all the time. If we could create the circuitry in our brain, the neurological networks in our brain, that this intelligence is a loving intelligence, and we could truly surrender whatever it is and open our hearts and trust that it's going to organize it in a way that's right for us.